Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, which is now just myself and Ezzy Ginsberg, but it wasn't just going to be the two of us. We are going to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Chuck Hellebuyck.
Ezzy Ginsberg, but it wasn't just going to be the two of us. We
got some reverb there, but
okay, hold on there.
Chuck Hellebuyck, Ezzy Ginsberg, it wasn't just going to be the two of us. We got some reverb there.
I'll mute Chuck's mic for a second while he gets he's got some reverb there. He's got our audio there, but okay, hold on. I'll unmute now, Chuck.
I'll mute Chuck's mic
we're
for
still
a second
picking
while
up.
he's got some reverb there. He's got our audio there, but
well, that's Chuck Hellebuyck, who's working on. Oh, hold on, let's see. There we go. There we go. The international influencer himself.
Now we're good.
Now we are good.
Sorry about
Chuck,
that.
Happens all the time. All good, Chuck.
I was watching on my phone, and then it popped up on here, and I forgot I had it on my phone.
Well, we're happy to welcome you to your first appearance on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the international influencer. Let's start with that, Chuck. You got that title on the dad's trip. I was in the arena for when they put you up on the screen, and it got a lot of play on social media. So what does it mean to let's start with that, getting that recognition. Obviously, you're a very successful YouTuber with your channel. So we could probably learn a few things from you in that regard, but just, getting that recognition and having fun with the Jets fans and that sort of thing.
Yeah, this was a surprise to me. It was kind of I don't know, it's kind of a joke, I guess, from the media guys or whatever. But the whole thing started, when you're doing YouTube videos or whatever, you're telling a story. Really, that's all it's really doing, whether it's a technical story or whatever. So this is my third dad trip, and so I was a lot more comfortable, and I wanted to really tell the story behind the scenes of what a grind. It is. I know they're paid well and everything, but it's such a grind that, you're going from the bus to the plane to a bus to the hotel. You get in there at 2 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning, and then you may take a bus to the rink and, practice or whatever. And then a bus to the game. And then after the game, you're bus to the plane and next one. And I'm like, I got to show some behind the scenes here and show what's going on. So I just started posting, and plus I wasn't putting out content on my channel. So I'm like, well, the people who follow me, may wonder what the heck I'm doing. So I said, I'll just post it out there on Twitter, and it took off. It just literally took off. And I guess it was telling a decent story because people were following it. And then I, throw a little, comedy in there. I tried to anyway. If no dad's eating the salads, and it was just fun because I watched it. I had a bolus, nice salad. Krev does a great job. He takes care of everything. And I just watched that salad not get touched while everyone's eating the burgers and the ribs and everything else. Okay, well, I got to post that. So,
absolutely love that. I mean, your content is awesome, and obviously, I was going to say with the last name Hellebuyck, everybody here in Manitoba, I mean, people are just going to love anybody with the last name Hellebuyck, right? Because obviously, your son is such a not only an amazing goaltender, but a great person. And wanted to ask you about Wednesday night. Connor got the shutout. It was only 17 saves, but I mean, he still had to make some big saves, and a shutout is a shutout, right? And I saw you tweet that, you can say the word now because obviously there's the jinx factor, but I wanted to ask you like on a kind of game by game basis, not when you're on the road with the team, but when you're just watching at home back in Michigan, like, do you text Connor usually after a win or a big shutout, or how does that work? Do you wait until the next day? Like, how does that work with kind of how you talk to Connor? Like, do you give him a little bit of space, or do you text him right after the game's over and say, nice shutout, son?
It depends. First of all, it was 16 saves because Scheifele got the 17th. So,
oh yeah, that's right.
So I did text him about that. But no, when he first started out, I would text him just, kind of give encouragement and just give some, dad feedback. But it pretty quickly, I knew shut up, let him do his thing. And then, now it's kind of, I text it when I feel I need to or want to, or just I'll text him, how the kid's doing, or just non-hockey stuff, just because he gets enough hockey stuff as it is, and then I want to know what's going on with the family, So it's a mixed bag now. He didn't need my help at all initially. He's not learning anything from me, but I'm just there as a dad to say, hey, keep going, kid, and chase the dream. And I get a front row seat.
Chuck, and I've watched your interviews when you did it with Huss, and I saw, some of the other conversations you've had. So we know that, the background, but maybe you could share with our audience the idea of the Hellebuyck family and how impactful hockey was to you growing up. And in Michigan, obviously there's a huge hockey community. So what was that like for you?
We weren't that much of a hockey family. That's why he had such an unorthodox way to get there, because we didn't know the path. I raced stock cars, when I was his age, just amateur stuff, and go-karting. My wife's dad raced motorcycles and stuff. So our plan was I was going to take the kids go-karting, and we were going to race go-karts. That was the plan. And then his brother, who was a really good hockey player, just didn't quite get the break. So he was a natural on skates. So at he's skating around in my rollerblades that come up to his knees. So he's just skating around the basement. And Connor just instantly went to net. So they would just, shoot, do one-on-ones all the time. But it really started. My older brother, 6 years older, his son, which I don't know, so he was 11 years old, and they had a birthday party. They had a street hockey. He eventually played some ice hockey himself. But that's how it started. We'd have this annual street hockey game on his birthday, and then the boys just watched and wanted to be part of it, and they started in roller and then eventually went to ice. But that's really what sparked it. My brother was a Red Wings season ticket holder, and we all kind of followed. We all watched hockey, but it was wasn't part of it. I played basketball. I could barely. I had to learn the skates to help coach them. So that's how bad I was.
Well, it sounds like the Hellebuyck family is a multi-sport family, right? Like, it sounds like everybody in your own family had their own specialties, right? And yeah. I wanted to ask you about Connor. Obviously has a lot of confidence, and that's something that's been. I don't think you can be the best goaltender on the planet, and I am saying it, Chuck. He is the best goaltender on the planet. I'm not saying he's top three. I'm going to throw out Vezina Buck right now. But I mean, where do you think that confidence comes from? Is that something that Connor always had at an early age? Because, like you said, it was a bit of an unorthodox route. Like, it was clear that when the Jets drafted him, even though he was a 5th round pick, it was clear that Connor was going to get to the NHL. His numbers at UMass Lowell were phenomenal, and then he was good in the American Hockey League. But going back to that confidence, because that seems like that's always been a real strength of Connor's.
Yeah, I think it just comes from playing. And then just our family in general. You don't want to play Monopoly with us. You don't want to play Risk with us. We're not good losers. We are competitive as can be, and it's horrible. We did a family fantasy football, and we had to quit because it was getting too nasty. And so from a competitive point of view, yeah. And sports wise, my wife was an athlete. I was an athlete. It just in all different sports, right? So it's there in the genes, I guess. But when they were younger, I brought home the movie, The Secret, based on the book, The Secret. And it's really just, the power of positive thinking. And really the whole idea behind it was, I've always believed, do what you can, do the best you can, and achieve what you want. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to work for it, but if you really want it, you can get it. And life's just going to throw a bunch of crap in your way, but you got to want it. And that was kind of the message. Well, he took it to heart. Like, I couldn't even believe it. His brother did too. His brother started a internet business in the basement. He was a junior in high school, and he still runs that business. It supports him and his family. And now he's chasing the dream to become a professional bass fisherman. So it runs in there. But Connor, from early on, just I gave him a cork board that says, put in the center of that cork board your idea and just focus on it. And it was goalie, and the scariest moment, I think, in some respects from a parent, is he was entering high school. I told him, I said, because he would skate out during the spring and that, so I wanted to see on the other side of the puck and have fun. But I said, kind of decide. And he goes, well, I want to be a goalie. And but I told him both, this, have a backup plan. And Chris's was the business. Well, Connor told me to my face, his dad, I don't have a backup plan. I go, it's okay. It takes time. He goes, no, you understand. I don't want a backup plan because it's going to distract me. I'm going to go. I'm going to make the NHL. I don't care how long it takes or what it's going to take. I'm just going to do it. And that's when I seen the determination. That's when I was like, whoa. And I said, okay, kid, do it. Do it.
That's
and
awesome.
He took it.
And was that now? What age was that when he told you that?
Let's see, he's freshman in high school, probably about 14 years old.
So you as a parent, though, so you hear your son say that, and parents obviously want what's best for their children, and they want them to follow the path that's true to their heart. So, but how daunting was that for you and your wife to be able to be like, okay, this is the path, and again, he went to Texas. That how unconventional is it? And again, just from a knowledge standpoint, how daunting was that to be like, we don't know what's next, but you had to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, life will throw obstacles. It's just how you deal with them, and it's your anxiety's getting away, and I understand all that. I've dealt with all that too. But yeah, I think that his mother was definitely more worried about it. What does this mean? And I didn't know what it meant. It's like he's freshman in high school, right? There was no thought of him going to NHL. I mean, that was not like my idea. Was if you can make it to a college, get a partial scholarship, and help pay for college. Hey, that's a success.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my thinking. And I'm like, okay, go for it, see what happens. And, it's just my thought was what's the fallback plan. But when he graduated high school, I mean, there was a high school coach who was a USHL scout. Everyone knew him in, that level, but the AAA and the scouts didn't know who he was. But everyone at the lower level knew hey, he's stoned a bunch of teams, so they knew his stats. They knew who he was. Well, this guy set up a tryout out in where was it? Iowa. I think it was Iowa. Yeah, it's a USHL team, and so we fly out there and find out. Like the goalie coach wasn't even there,
Mm-hmm.
and he felt so disrespected, and so they put him in a practice, and I'm just watching this. I'm like, as a high school kid against USHL players, and they do a one-on-one at the end, and he's just stoning these guys. He just, no one's going to score on him. I could see in his body language, because I'm sitting up in the stands, but I could see in the body language that you guys don't know what the hell's happening right now. You are not going to score on this kid because he's in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. And it was a competition between him and the backup. Whoever, one get to go to the locker room, the other one had to clean up the pucks. And he says, I'm not cleaning up their damn pucks. So, yeah, he went in the locker room, got his stuff, talked to the coach briefly and said, let's go, and then the coach come out and kind of passed by and gave us a passing, whatever. And it was disrespectful. But I think that planted a seed for him that from there, he says, any opportunity, he's going to make the most of it. Any opportunity to go to another team and try out, he's going to make the most of it. And so it's probably the best thing that could have happened, he went to Youngstown. He got a tryout at Youngstown, and he USHL, and
Mm-hmm.
he drove down there in our car. He called me up. He says, Dad, I guess I'm coming home. And then he called me back like 5 minutes later. He says, Dad, they want me to stay another day. And I go, holy cow, okay. Got him a hotel room, whole bit. He went back and played their last day of their camp. And then they had to tell him, they said, look, we didn't know who you were. And you just phenomenal. But we've already picked our 3 goalies. Otherwise, you'd be here. So we're going to keep an eye on you. And that, I think, planted the seed that he can do it. He came back from that going, I know what I need to do. And that's when he got the tryout with Odessa. And he went there in the first day, just dominated. And Joe Clark pulled him off the ice early and said, we should have drafted you. Because he had that chip on his shoulder, too. He wasn't drafted. Mm-hmm. And he pulled him off, said, you made the team, just go. And he went and got his fishing pole and went fishing. And that was in Minnesota. And then, then we had to send him to Texas with a host family, which we never did. We never did the traveling. So we didn't know. He was 17, and I said, well, there you go, kid. Just make it work. Call me if you need anything, and we'll go from there. And it was a learning experience, but worked out great. He had a great host family, and he went down there and tore it up.
That's such an awesome story. And I know that, people watching live or on the replay podcast, people are going to love hearing that because it shows you, like you said, right? It's that, to me, what stands out about that is, like you said, life is going to throw you a lot of different things, and it's about perseverance, right? Connor didn't let the fact that he wasn't drafted. He said, I'm going to show you. And boy, did he ever show them, because not only did he go on to a great college career, he's like I said, I'm confident in saying that he's the best goaltender on the planet right now.
Nice.
And I wanted to ask you, Chuck, about the 8-year contract, because obviously, I'm sure that you don't follow it as much as, us and the media and the fans do, but there was a lot of speculation about Connor and Scheifele. Were they going to be traded? Was this going to be the last year of their contracts? And then in early October, I think it was early October, your son and Scheifele signed the big 8-year contracts, and
7 years, right?
It was this year. It's
oh,
7
sorry,
year extension.
you're right.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, Chuck. I added a year there. I apologize. You're right. It was 7-year contracts, including this year. He's under contract for eight more years. But and again, you can't speak for Connor, but I mean that must have been a little bit difficult for him, right? Because there were people speculating and saying this or that, but I think Connor was very forthright when he said, I want to be here and I want to win a Stanley Cup. He didn't just say, I want to be here. He made it clear that, he wanted to win a Stanley Cup with the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't privy to everything, to some of it, and some of it, I'll never share, but, yeah, there's, that's a tough decision for anybody. I know him and Scheifele talked. I talked to Brad, his dad, and, but the bottom line is he wants a cup. I mean, he's said it numerous times. It's just, he's playing to win. And that's the Hellebuyck trade. It's like losing sucks and it's unacceptable. So you play to win. You do what you ever got to do. So, yeah, I don't know all the, the business details of everything, who was interested and what the talks were or whatever. But Winnipeg was always part of the discussion. It was never not part of that discussion. And when he told me, I told him, I says, do what's best for you and your family. And, would I have loved to be closer? Sure. I'd love to be in the US. Sure. That's a personal reason, but that's got nothing to do with him. So that's what I told him, do what's best for you and your family. And he figured it all out, and he saw the potential, and he believes it can be done, and otherwise he wouldn't be there. And now he's ready to win a cup. So it's as simple as that. It's, if they didn't have the pieces that he thought could win it, then maybe it would have been different. But it's just a matter. It's never easy. It's you got to have faith and you got to believe. But like he says, you got to believe that you're winning. You got to think like you're winning, even when you're losing. Because if you start thinking about losing, then you start doing things like a loser. He says you got to think like a winner, and the winning will come. And when you're winning, you keep thinking like that. He's just like, it's what permeates your thinking. It's what you do. It's what drives you. It's what makes things happen. That's probably comes across as confidence, but it's more of a belief system,
right? That
I want to win. And today we're going to win, and this is what I got to do to win. And we won, so let's go in the next one. It's really, really simple. Can come across as cocky, overconfident, whatever, but that's really his thought process.
And it's interesting. It's interesting you should say that, Chuck, because I remember in games where he would give up, let's say 4 goals, 5 goals, and he'd like, well, I like my game. I like the details. I like this. And sometimes people would be like, really? Like, this is, but you'd hear that. And I mean, again,
and then Connor would get a shutout the next game.
No, but then, and I knew him because obviously I covered him in the AHL. So I knew obviously what he was like with the Moose, and I wasn't in St. John, so I didn't cover him in the Ice Caps. But my point is he understood that, but it's funny because you're right. It's unusual. It's an unusual style of thinking, but you can see it's elevated him to what he's become because of it.
Yeah, and like I remember that one in New York where we gave up 5 goals toward the beginning of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Gave up 5 goals, and he comes off the ice and tells them, "I'm going to win a Vezina this year."
Yeah.
And people looking at him. But I watched that game, and I watched it, and I went, he was in position. He got a few deflections or bad bounces, and it's all, you'll say it's all excuses, but you watch goaltending enough, and I'm by no means an expert, but I've watched enough, and I'm going, kid, I wouldn't change a damn thing. You were where you're supposed to be, a few little whatevers, and you're stopping a bunch of those. And then I read, it's like, oh, it's got a goalie situation in Winnipeg, and I'm like, I just laugh. It's like, Yeah, right. And I think, like you said, he came back with a shutout or 1-goal game, whatever, and it was never a question again. And nothing against. I think Brossoit was a goalie. Then nothing against LB. I love LB. He's a great goalie.
Mhm.
Great goalie. He could be a starter anywhere, as far as I'm concerned. So to have both guys as part of the tandem, I think it's a winning combination. But yeah, he knows his game. And a lot of people don't understand goaltending. I certainly will not claim to understand it, but I know I think a little more than average. But yeah, no, only goalies understand goalies, and it's just he knows. Trust him, and he'll figure it out.
Yeah, he could write a few textbooks at this point on goaltending. Chuck, I wanted to ask you, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but it was announced recently that there's going to be the Four Nations tournament in 2025. And then the NHL has announced that they will go to the Winter Olympics
in Italy.
And yeah, and obviously, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck there's going to be a couple of excellent American goaltenders facing off tonight, because I believe Thatcher Demko is going to play against Connor Hellebuyck, unless that changes. But I mean, Demko's in the conversation as well. I think Jake Ottinger on Dallas. But just wanted to ask you, is that something that Connor's mentioned to you? Or have you guys talked about that at all? Like, because it's been a while since, since 2016 that we've had best on best at the World Cup level or the Olympic level. Is that something Connor has talked to you about at all?
Briefly. I mean, we talked about it. I told him, I said, if you get picked to go to Italy, I'm going.
Yeah.
I told
Chuck, can I come too?
Yeah, I told my wife, I said, she don't like to fly, it's a long flight. I says, you don't have to go. She's not as big a hockey fan, but she's always there, always supporting. But I'm going. If my son's, I don't care if he's a backup, he's in the Olympics, I'm going. So it's but yeah, we've talked briefly about it from the past, but it's I think in his case, it's like, a nice experience, feather in the cap, the whole bit, but it still comes back to that same statement. Wants a cup. Yep. And if we win a gold medal, sure. I mean, he won with the bronze in the World Cup there several years ago. And had a heck of a game. So that was exciting to watch. And unfortunately, I couldn't be at that one. So that's why I said, I don't care what happened. I'm going to Italy if he's called. So as far as us talking about it, yeah, it's it gets talked about, but nothing.
Sure.
Nothing major. It's kind of in the future. Right now, the focus is play the best he can, keep his game going, keep the team going. Let's win this. Let's make it to the playoffs. Let's get to the playoffs, and hopefully let's take it right to the cup. That's the talk.
I suspect that the thousands of folks who are going to listen to this are going to be very happy to hear that kind of talk, because that's their focus as well, Chuck. And this is Chuck Hellebuyck. He's joining us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show on this Saturday morning, where we start every Saturday talking about the Jets, sometimes about the Moose at 9 o'clock in the morning. Chuck, I wanted to take you back in time, because, we used to go to the drafts every year. Actually, 2012, the year Connor
we didn't go that year. That was Pittsburgh, right, Dave?
It was Pittsburgh, and it was actually the only year we didn't go to the draft.
We weren't there either.
And so that was what I was going to ask you. Did I couldn't remember. Did Connor go? And was there any discussion about that? How did that set up? And what was it like when he did get picked? So obviously you didn't go. You guys were probably back in Michigan, but what was it like when he got selected, and what was that process like for your family?
Yeah, like I told you, we didn't understand it. So we didn't know what happened. I mean, he didn't, it was his last year that he was eligible. Right. Mm-hmm. And we knew there was interest, he had gone to a World Cup tryout. He had ruptured his spleen playing roller hockey just not long before that World Cup tour tryout. And he had recovered. It was scary times. And he got himself back in shape to make that tryout. And it was kind of pushing a little bit, but he was dead. He was nothing's going to stop him. And that's when I knew there was a Winnipeg scout there really probing me, because I was watching and he's asking me questions. So that was my only inkling. Connor knew, there was a lot of interest, but basically he was coaching goalies in the off season, and he was in between training sessions when he got the call. I was helping my other son Chris work on his car. We were, up to our elbows in grease, and fixing stuff, and all of a sudden all our phones just blew up. We weren't even really watching, because we were like, we really didn't know. It's so our phones blew up, and then we went back and watched stuff. He had his interview right there at the rink. And then we all went to dinner that night, and we're, what just happened? We were all just in this pleasant shock. We went over to his grandparents, and we went out to a restaurant, steakhouse, and said, what happened? We don't even know what happened. And just kind of sat in the glow of the excitement of it all and go, okay, what happens next?
Yeah.
We had no idea. So it was very unorthodox in our approach, and probably, maybe should have done a little more homework and maybe been there, but there was no indication that that would happen, and it's just another step in the unorthodox way he got to the NHL, I guess.
And so what did you know about Winnipeg before he got drafted, if anything? And then were you kind of like, well, okay, now we got to figure out this Winnipeg thing?
Yeah, well, I knew about Winnipeg 1.0, and then moving, and then I knew that the team had come back, but it didn't really follow it that much. So I'm like, wait, where's Winnipeg? Isn't that north of? That's cold there, isn't it? and so yeah, but like, okay, yeah. Then I started. Oh yeah, I know this team. Recognized players and that, but it's we were solid Red Wings fans, and the focus was always battling with Colorado and Chicago and the whole bit, more East Coast type stuff. So we didn't see Winnipeg that often, so we didn't know much about it. So yeah, when he got called to, in fact, he got called to fly up for training camp, we had to rush and get him a passport.
That's funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's I've been there many times now. Of course, he lives there, and it's just the city has treated him, him and his family so good, and treat us good when they're there, and it's become kind of a second home. So it's been an experience. It's been really good, and nothing but good things to say about Winnipeg.
Yeah, I think you already know this, but your son is, well, you're kind of a big deal as well in Manitoba. Both of you guys. Not sure who's the bigger star now, but we just have a few more questions for you, and we want to ask you about 3D printing, because that's actually something that fascinates me. I don't know a lot about it, but we want to ask you about how you got into that, and Filament Friday and everything like that. But I also wanted to go back, because I messaged you a couple of weeks ago. We wanted to get you on for during the All-Star break, but you mentioned to me that you were on vacation, and I just wanted to just go back a couple weeks, and I'm not sure how much you caught of the All-Star game, but I mean, just how nice was that for you, though, to watch your son? Because obviously, like you mentioned, we talked about earlier, the regular season's a grind, right? And you want to get into the playoffs and go on a nice Stanley Cup run. But for Connor, that must have been such a nice break. I mean, I'm not sure, he probably would have liked to go to Costa Rica or Mexico or something like that as well. But I'm sure for him, it was an honor, and just, nice to be, around all the, the pomp and the circumstance of the All-Star break. Sure.
I mean, this was his fourth All-Star, and I've been to the three previous. We actually scheduled, we were in Disney. I got a big 2-bedroom suite for us to enjoy that week off, and we had scheduled that way ahead of time. And his sister and her fiance were coming in like midweek, so it was time to hang with the grandchildren and go to Disney, go to Magic Kingdom a whole bit, enjoy some sunshine, and then of course he got the nod. And then he had to leave early, and he's like, "Well, Dad, you coming?" And I go, "I think I'm staying here in the sunshine." But it's because his sister was coming in, and I couldn't just say I had the room and everything. But it was like, no, it was. I think it was more fun for him in many ways, because his son Hugh is, he's just a hockey nut. The kid if he keeps going, he's going to be another hockey player, because he just loves the sport. And so I think it was a lot of fun for him to take Hugh around behind the scenes. And I saw a joy in him that I didn't see at the previous ones. I mean, he always happy to be there. But it's just to take his son around and of course his wife and daughter, to Andrea and Violet. It was a family thing, and it was great. My brother went in my place, and Andrew's dad was there his first time. So I think it was a great experience for everybody involved. And but yeah, that was special because he took his son around.
All right. Well, Chuck, I'm going to ask you a hard-hitting question. Eddie's going to ask you about the 3D printing, but I got to ask you this one. First of all, it's a two-parter though. Number one, who got Connor into fishing? Was that a thing from you? And the second part is, you said your son Chris is becoming a professional bass fisherman, and you spoke about how competitive your family is when you're playing Monopoly or Risk or anything like that. I can understand that sentiment, for the record. So if that's the case, when Connor and Chris are fishing together in the summer, what is that like when those two are competing on the boat?
So your first question, as far as the fishing, their grandfather and my father-in-law got them into fishing. When they were young, they'd go fish. Grandpa would take them out fishing. I drove the boat. I like driving. I like racing the cars and stuff. I'm like, I'll drive the boat. I would scan the lake, looking for drop-offs, whatever. You guys want to go to that spot? Well, I'm okay, get you there. And then I'd help, put the bait on the line when they were younger and a whole bit. But no, I honestly, I love the tournaments. I've done a few tournaments with them. I love it because it's a window. It's a challenge. There's the challenge, right? Got how big a fish? You get 5 to keep, and how big a fish can you catch? I love that. But as far as just going out fishing, I find it boring as can be. And they love it. They just love it. So, but you said about Chris is they're real competitive. He's trying to make it. But when they're in the summer, they really don't fish against each other. Rarely. They often team up. There'll be a 2-man tournament, and they kill it. I mean, they show up at a tournament. In most cases, it's like, oh crap, the Hellebuyck brothers are here, and they've won several tournaments. They have competed against each other, and Connor has actually admitted to me. He says, "Dad, I almost can't keep up with Chris anymore. He's gotten so good. He knows how to switch. They got 14 different poles with different lures, and they know what they're doing. But yeah, I almost can't compete with him anymore. He's so it's if they tend to compete together, and then we'll go to the weigh-ins, and it's just fun. It's just it's fun to watch. They're usually in the top 3 and do pretty well. They do pretty well. So
have they crossed paths with Big Buff? Because Big Buff, you see him around Lake of the Woods, and he's winning tournaments and everything like that. Have they ever got together fishing, or has Buff given your son tips or anything?
Oh yeah, well, Buff got Connor into ice fishing up there in Manitoba, and but yeah, he still talks to him. Connor keeps in touch with Buff, and I think they've organized some fishing time. I think Chris has come up there and gone fishing with him before.
Awesome.
So yeah, I remember first time I met Buff. It was a first dad trip, and he comes racing in the morning. He comes, sits down at the table, and he wanted to talk fishing. And I'm like, sorry, it's his grandpa, not me. I think I saw the biggest disappointment on Buff's face. Oh crap, I don't want to talk to you. He's a great guy. I had a great time talking to him, but yeah, I lost a few points there because I wasn't big into fishing.
I love it. His Buff's love for fishing is absolutely legendary, right? Like I think that's the only time you see Buff is when he's caught a fish or something like that, or so. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, just final question. Just wanted to ask you about 3D printing, because it's not something. It's a relatively new thing, right? It's in the last, 10 years or so, 15 years or so. You would know better than I would. But I just wanted to ask you kind of how you got into that. And you've become not only an international influencer in the hockey world, but I know you've got a big I think you have I want to say 300,000 or something.
Almost, yeah.
Like it's huge. I mean, can you also help us get there to 300,000? Because we're about to hit 6,000, Chuck, and we've been around for 15 years doing this hockey show. But yeah, just how did you get into it, and like where did the love for this come from? Because it's obviously something that's only going to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah, well, actually, it's been around for a long time. Probably about 40 years. It's the original stereophotography machines, the big ones.
Yeah.
So I worked at Ford, and that's where I first saw it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. But it's kind of like computers, they're big, took up rooms, and eventually we got home computers. Well, now about 12 years ago, we got home 3D printers. And that's really the 10 years you're talking about, where anyone could then do it. And my my background is electronics. I've done a lot of electronics. My day job's electronics. I've written 10 books on electronics, and the books were starting to die off. So I says, well, I'm going to do this YouTube stuff and show people, how to program and how to build electronics, and kind of share my hobby, and like everyone kind of does on YouTube. And the electronics it was difficult to teach, at least at that point. And everyone wanted to know about the 3D printer that I had, because the 3D printer I have for printing the boxes or brackets or whatever. And I was constantly fixing it, because back then the printers just weren't that good. So I started showing people how I fixed it, and those videos just took off. And I'm like, okay, I'll just do 3D printing. It's fun, and then it just, I reached a point where it was about 4 years in, the channel was kind of flat. And there's a new printer that came out, a real low cost printer that everyone's interested in. I had one, and I started showing how to improve that thing. And that's when the channel just exploded, because I hit the right topic at the right time, and had the 4 years of experience prior, and then I just help people get started. And then it's the Ender. The Ender was the name of the printer. It's an Ender 3, and people started calling me the Ender Whisperer, because I knew everything about it. And then from there, I just grew the social media, just being around people. And there's so many big YouTubers that I know personally, and you just get tips from everybody, and you go hang out at the same kind of meetups and stuff. And it just takes time, but it just grows on its own. It gets a life of its own, and then the subscribers and views and everything else comes. And so I've been doing this 10 years. 10 years I've been doing the 3D printing. I'm actually trying to get electronics back into it, because the printers have now gotten really good. You don't need my help that much. So
Well, Chuck, feel free to mention a legal curve on Filament Friday, and maybe get us a few subscribers.
Sounds good.
Well, we appreciate it. We appreciate you telling us more about your son, more about yourself, and of course the international influence you wielded on the dad's trip. Chuck, thank you very much for joining us today on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chuck.
Appreciate it.